the first line I ever wrote in any book on this subject was back in 1990, and the line was something like, in a book called The Truth Vibrations, I'm just starting a journey and maybe you'll come with me. And it's been a journey of enormous challenge and certainly learning. And it's almost been like you've been going up through the frequencies. And as you do so, things become clearer and clearer, and you get more and more clarity. And so I see things in a clearer way than I did when I started. And also you are, when you're working with psychics, as I was in those early days, trying to make sense of what was happening to my life, and make sense of what I was beginning to understand, you're at the mercy of the psychic, who is communicating information. For instance, what psychics do is they have the ability to access some of these other frequencies of existence and bring information from entities on those dimensions into this one. Now, you know, there are great footballers of world renown, and there are people that kick a ball about in a team on the park on a Sunday morning. They're both footballers, but they're not the same quality of footballer, same ability. And also, if someone has a belief system, a psychic, about a religion or Jesus or whatever, what happens is, because it's like telepathy, as the energy is communicated through the psychic will put their own spin on it, and it can come out in a less than pure way, or less than the same accurate way that it was communicated, because it's gone through a filter, and it's gone through a filter which is based on belief in something. And so all these factors are in there with regard to information and how accurate it is or whatever. What I will say about the truth vibrations, particularly, Love Changes Everything, I don't like that book, because it was written at the most extreme time of my transformation, when I wasn't sure what planet I was on, never mind what my name was. I was transforming from the person who presented the sport for the BBC to what I became, and it's now it's easy for me to transform from one state to another, because you know, you get used to it and all the rest of it. But in those days, you know, I was a baby from this point of view, and it was a real challenge, and it was a very bewildering experience. So the Love Changes Everything was written at that time, and you know, with to be honest, the bewilderment that I was feeling, the confusion that I was feeling. But Truth Vibrations, the first one, which was written before my head really blew, I am extremely pleased with that. And it's interesting that when I talk about things today, I'm talking about them in a more detailed way, a way of greater understanding than them. But when I read through Truth Vibrations, it's incredible that back in 1990, when I wrote it, the themes that I'm talking about now still remain. They're more expanded now, more detailed, but they still remain. Even down to the fact of the name of the book, which is Truth Vibrations, which I wrote because, or called it that, because of what I was beginning to understand, again through psychics, because many of the psychics I saw for that book were very, very accurate, and were able to get right out there and bring in some serious information about the nature of what's going on. And it stands the test of time. And I called it Truth Vibrations because I was beginning to learn about an energy wave that was coming through this part of the solar system, part of the universe, that was going to wake people up and was going to bring about weather change and was going to bring about geological change. And there would be things like tsunamis and great storms, and the power of hurricanes would increase. Now, when I started talking about this in the early 90s, of course, they were going, "You are completely bonkers, mate." But they don't now, because it's happening. And what we call global warming actually is this cycle, this energy cycle that's now gathering strength all the time. When you look at the ancient peoples like the Maya and others, they talked about cycles of energy, which went in specific cycles, because we're in a computer program. It's not just the body that's a computer. This is a computer-generated dream world, right? And therefore it operates in cycles like computer programs do, like software do, you know, software does. And at this point in the software, the program, energy starts to change, vibrational frequencies start to change, and one of the effects of that is it gets warmer. We go into a warm period. And so global warming is actually a part of the universal computer program. And, you know, you can have as many carbon footprints as you bloody like, or none. It's still going to happen, because it's not caused by carbon dioxide emissions. It's caused by a natural cycle. The sun is generating more and more powerful energy, manifesting in sunspots and stuff like that. There's explosions of energy from the sun, and it's getting warmer. And you know, the reason that it was warmer 1,000 years ago than it is now, when, you know, they didn't have turbocharged handcarts, or, you know, factories turning out, you know, piles of hay, is because at that point there was a cycle of warmth again. Well, in terms of the second one, with the Peru experience, which started this whole period that led to the massive awakening I had in public, it's not so much a, you know, I didn't experience it as some entity speaking to me saying go to Peru. I experienced it as a enormously strong intuitive knowing that I had to go to Peru, and I didn't know why. And what happens, I mean, these two questions are connected in many ways. What happens when you allow the computer level of reality, thought and logic as it's perceived, to intervene, to suppress your intuition? What you're doing is you're operating on the computer level of reality. You're letting the computer call the shots, because we're not talking about a computer with the body that needs to be have inputted data to make something happen. We're talking about a biological computer, which some universities around the world are now building. A biological computer has the ability to think for itself up to a point compared with consciousness, real consciousness, expansive consciousness. And it is following a program, and it is thinking for itself, the body is. And it talks to us through thought and emotion, both of which are electrochemical phenomena. Our consciousness, in terms of the infinite consciousness, infinite awareness that we are, God, it's catchy. Have a good cough, dear. There you go. In terms of the infinite consciousness that we are, that speaks to us not through thought, but through knowing. And knowing, intuition. There's this difference between thinking and knowing. Thinking has to work things out, has to ponder over things. Because now, what are the things here? If I go to Peru, then it's going to cost me a lot of money and I don't have a job, which I didn't at the time. And then what about people back here while I'm away? And is this some... Thought works it out. And I tell you what thought will invariably do, because the computer program is defending its thought, primacy in the driving seat. It will tell you why following your intuition is not a good thing. Oh, you can't do that. What about the mortgage? What about the cat? What about this? What about that? And what led me to Peru was not some entity, some spirit being, if you like, that I was aware of. It was this urging, intuitively, I gotta go to Peru. And this links into the other question, how do I delink from the matrix? Or how do I, yeah. Well, stop thinking and start knowing. When your intuition says, do this, go here, do it. Instead of letting your thought level, your computer level, list all the reasons why you shouldn't do it. And what happens is when you follow your intuition, you can get yourself into what appears to be a lot of trouble, because your life falls apart. It falls apart because you are breaking the program. You're going against the program that you've been following all your life, and therefore your program starts to break down. And what happens is, because you're reprogramming your reality, so what happens is that people that were in your life, that were part of the previous program, that were, if you like, vibrationally, magnetically attracted to you because of the state of magnetism that you were in, because of your state of being, they start to disconnect from that magnetic connection. And you experience that in your daily life as people going out of your life. You might have a job or whatever when you start following your intuition. And what happens is that job is part of the construct of the previous program you were following. That construct breaks up. One of the expressions of that is you disconnect from that job. You might experience it as being sacked by the BBC, as I was when this process was absolutely happening to me. They sacked me. They didn't really sack me. I sacked myself because I was delinking from that program. And what happens, however, is if you keep with it and you keep following your intuition, because once things start changing and you start having challenges in your life because of the way your intuitions have taken you down a path, this computer level kicks in, crosses its arms and goes, see, told you what happens when you do that, you should listen to me. And a lot of people go, yeah, what was I doing? And they go back, start thinking again, and start denying their intuition. But I tell you, from my own experience and the experience of other people that I've met all over the world, if you stick with it, if you stick with following your intuition no matter what, eventually things start to happen in your life, good things. And you reach a point where the computer level, because it's downloadable and changeable, has observed that even though things are a challenge when you follow your intuition, eventually they work out, and things that you wanted to happen, not despite these challenges, but because of them. And it starts to come into line with your intuition. In other words, you start to feel and think the same, and that war between the intuitive self that says, I want to do this, I want to do this, and the head computer that's going, you can't do that, you can't do that. Suddenly, the war stops, and what you think to do and what you feel to do intuitively become the same thing. And that's a wonderful, wonderful moment, because then you are kind of a whole being again, instead of two parts at war with each other. And so when people say to me, you know, what changed your life? What changed my life is when I decided I was going to follow my intuition at all times, even when it was at odds with my thoughts, my intellectual level. And that's what changed my life. And I'd recommend it to anybody.